We pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, good evening. Would the acting clerk please call the roll?
Councilor Mendonça.
Here.
Councilor Mercier.
Here.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Dakota. Councilor Elliott.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
8 present, 1 absent. Thank you. Let me read the special meeting notice to get the notice into the minutes. Notice is hereby given as required by Rule 6 of the City of Lowell City Council rules that the Lowell City Council will hold a special meeting of the Lowell City Council in council chambers on Wednesday, November 30th, 2011 at 6 p.m. Our agenda is to interview candidates for the open position of city clerk by order, James L. Milanazzo, Mayor, signed by Robert E. Slagle, acting city clerk. What I would like to do before we invite Lisa Goodwin, who is our first candidate this evening, what I'd like to do is, I guess, agree on some ground rules. What I thought we would do is open it up with questions starting with Councilor Broderick and going this way, and then round robin, if we go back, Councilor Caulfield and so forth. And then we can start with the next candidate, maybe with Councilor Elliott, round robin again. I can keep track, and as well as the acting clerk can keep track as well. And I'd say at least 2 questions per counselor. We'll have an opening statement and a closing statement. Each interview is scheduled to last 45 minutes. So with that being said,
Move to adopt.
move to adopt those guidelines by Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Mercier. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Thank you. With that, then, I'm going to invite Lisa Goodwin to come forward. Lisa's our first candidate. And Lisa, thank you for being here. And with that, I'm going to go join Councilor Broderick on the floor. Again, Lisa, thank you for being here. What I'd like to do now is have you give an opening statement as to, obviously, your candidacy, your background, and then when you conclude that, we'll begin with Councilor Broderick, his questions. Thank you, Lisa.
Is the button green?
Yes.
Lit? Yes, thank you.
My name is Lisa Goodwin. I'm from Lincoln, Maine.
The microphone.
About 5 hours away. I applied for this position because I was looking to relocate, and the clerk's position is my love. I am a town manager right now, but my passion really lies with the clerk's position. I did it for, 18 years in Lincoln, and then also another year while I was town manager. I served in both capacities, which was quite a feat in itself. It was a 7-day-a-week job. My son has graduated college. He's working in Kittery. He's not going to come back to the Lincoln area, and family is very, very important to me, and Lowell is close enough for me that I can see him whenever I want to see him. Before that, I took care of my elderly father until he was 91 when he passed away. He lived with me for 5 years, and I couldn't relocate at that point until he was gone. But now my life is freed up, and it's time for me to move on and do something. And I would like to have the city clerk's position because it's something that I truly love.
Thank you, Lisa. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you and welcome. Excuse me. I'm not sure if we're limited to 2 questions, but my first one's kind of an easy one. Would you live here in Lowell?
Yes, I would.
You would, okay. And you have extensive experience in Maine, and I'm impressed. Lifetime certified clerk of Maine, graduate of New England Municipal Clerks Institute and Academy. Are you how familiar are you with the Massachusetts, or do you know if they're much different than Maine, some of the laws, the open meeting law, the public records law?
They are different than Maine's, as I actually have a lot of clerk friends in Massachusetts. I went to the institute with them and have some very good friends that we will be lifetime friends. They are different, but they're similar. You know, it wouldn't take a lot, just a refresher to learn them.
Okay, and one of the issues that we have in Lowell, I don't know if you followed any of the stories in the newspaper and all, and such. There's been a number of meetings with the subcommittee here in terms of changing processes and procedures in the clerk's office. And one of the issues is the preservation of documents, and there's a number of documents that need to be worked on immediately, and we're going to try and budget and put a process in place to start with the most fragile, I guess. What types of technology or what types of experience have you had with document preservation, and what type of recommendations might you have for that?
Actually, in Lincoln, we had, when I took over, no records had ever been restored. We had some that were in very poor condition. The birth records were carbon copies, and any time that your hands touch one of those documents, you are destroying it. The oils from your hands get on those documents. It's really important to touch documents as little as possible. I worked with Browns River Bindery out of Vermont, and we set up a plan where we restore 2 to 3 books a year. That's all the town can afford. So we have been working at that for many, many years, probably 15 years now. And we still have a ways to go. And what I did with our more recent documents, once we started that program, I changed how we filed our documents so that they were put in a protective sleeve so that no oils were touching any of the paper, and the paper would last longer. And we're also now putting them on the computer.
Okay. I'll limit my questions to leave some for the other councils, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. I will call you Madam Manager, because that's what you are. You're a manager of Lincoln, Maine. Or I can call you Lisa, or Madam?
Lisa's fine.
Lisa's fine, okay. Welcome to Lowell, Mass, and I must applaud you for driving over 5 hours to be here with us for this interview. And Lisa, what is the population of Lincoln, Maine?
5,200 in year-round and 10,000 during the summer.
5,200?
Yeah.
Okay. You have an outstanding resume here, and one of the things that stands right out with me is you were the clerk of the year 2005?
Mm-hmm.
2005? What was that, Maine Town Clerk?
It's the Maine Town and City Clerks Association.
I applaud you for that. And you also have a 7-member town council that
Yes.
works with you, 42 full-time employees. You also are involved in the union negotiations and things of that experience. So, and it's very easy to see that you have worked with the public extensively in Lincoln, Maine. Lowell is the 4th largest city in the Commonwealth, behind Boston, Worcester, Cambridge, and Springfield. The city clerk's office is extremely busy, and there's all kinds of the issues that are going on constantly in the daytime with the public. Councilor Broderick asked if you had experience with the Massachusetts general laws and open meeting laws and so forth, and you indicated you do.
Well, I don't have experience with those laws.
But you know of them.
I know of them, and I have listened to some of the clerks from Massachusetts talk about what happens in their offices.
And what's very important to me, I think my colleagues as well, if you receive this position, you would move to Lowell, Massachusetts.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to relinquish the floor to my colleague, Councilor Elliott, and I will come back with further questions if I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you as well for driving 5 hours to come and for the interview. One of the questions I had, how or why did you leave the position of town clerk to take the position of town manager? How did that come about?
Well, when the previous manager left, he recommended to the council that they appoint me as the interim manager. And so the council appointed me, and I worked in that capacity for about 5 months, and they weren't really having a lot of success in filling the position. And so I said, well, I'll throw my hat in. You know, the department managers in Lincoln asked me if I would, and because they liked working underneath me, so that was the main reason. And, you know, I did miss the clerk's work once I was gone from it.
What is the most challenging aspect of being the town manager?
Every day there's some type of a brush fire. So the challenge is trying to get your work done and put out those fires at the same time.
Okay. There's somewhat of there is a staff in the clerk's office. Trying to think, is it four? During the times of shrinking resources, apparently, it's really my question. There's 5. We have an acting clerk, that's 5. There are still the same demands. In fact, I think we know that it's even more busier now. There are more residents, more requests for so many things. How do you think you would manage to address all the concerns, knowing that with the fiscal situation in Massachusetts, and I'm sure it's the same in Maine, there's not an awful lot of extra money around and staff to hire additional staff. So how do you feel you could achieve that balance of still providing services and meet the needs during times of shrinking resources?
Well, first I'd have to analyze and look and see what's going on in the office and see what can be changed, what we could do different, make things more efficient and streamlined, because if you do things like you've always done, you're going to get the same results. So there has to be some changes, especially when you downsize in your personnel. You have to do things differently to get the work done.
I agree, thank you. And lastly, what do you feel, and the recommendation from the City of Auburn, the city manager, was very complimentary. What do you feel is one of your greatest strengths that you could bring to the city, or to the clerk's office?
Planning and organizing. That is where I excel.
Okay, that's what he highlighted, so that's a good thing. So just one last thing. Have you had any experience, I know there was some discussion from a previous member on preservation, but it's always an ongoing process of codification of our ordinances. Do you have that some experience doing that when you were the town clerk up in Maine?
Yeah, I noticed that you use general code with your codes. I actually had to do it myself. I didn't have anybody to cross-check to make sure that, you know, our ordinances weren't in conflict with state law. But we did that each time we addressed an ordinance change, we checked it with the state law to make sure that it was, you know, in line with the state law and not in controversy. We also, at one point, went through the entire ordinance book with the council. I think I had a committee of 3 that worked with me, and we redid the whole ordinance book.
Great. I want to thank you again, and thank you for your answers.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello, Ms. Goodwin. Thank you for being here, and thanks for making the trip. My questions have to do, I guess, somewhat with automation and computerization, and I can see from your resume that you've implemented things, an Excel program to track payroll and budget. You also mentioned access to databases for dog licenses and things like that. We have some investment already in Lowell with the Munis system, and I wondered if you've heard of that, or have you know, through your contacts in the associations, had any exposure to that, or you know, have heard about that being used in lieu of or in conjunction with some of the things you've done already.
Yeah, I haven't used Munis, but I have heard of it, and I know other communities that have used it.
Including in Maine, or just?
Yeah,
okay.
It's actually in southern Maine, because it's a more expensive program, and in Maine, a lot of the municipalities use a program called Trio.
Okay. Do you have one in the town that you've been in?
We use Trio.
Trio?
Yeah, we just switched last year. We had a different program that we used, but we just switched.
The other, we've had other governmental agencies have some success in, scanning records and not storing as much on paper as had been done in the past. And certainly this record book restoration project is impressive, and we do have some need for that. But we'd also, if it's permissible by law, like to stop doing that going forward and make use of technology. Have you had any sort of exposure to those types of things where we're going to keep these records on computer now and do away with paper copies, or does maybe Maine law doesn't allow for that, or?
Yeah, the records in the clerk's office, they have to be kept, so we haven't been able to do anything like that. Except for this year, they've just changed the vital records programs so that the death records are all electronic now, and they're moving towards the birth record. So eventually, we are going to get into that there, but it's slow moving.
Okay. So the vital records is certainly a large component of this job. There are other things kind of acting as, the clerk of the council, and it seems like you've had that type of experience, and in fact, more than the typical experience that would require of a clerk here. But what are the, so I assume you're comfortable in those roles
Yes.
as well? And as far as supervision of staff, you've had, what's the most people you've had? I guess probably now as manager, right?
Well, yeah, I'm responsible for 42, but I have department heads I have 8 department heads that oversee the,
And how, it was the clerk's office, much smaller, obviously. What would that consist of when you were there?
I believe at the time there were 3 full-time and 1 part-time.
All right.
And that was for tax collection too, that wasn't just the clerk's office.
Okay, and did it have other things? Some places have elections, or?
Yes, I did elections too.
You did, okay. All right. I'll let Councilman Donson move on. I know I asked more than 2 questions, but I may have some others if we have additional time.
Okay. As we get down the line, the questions have been asked, so it becomes hard to come up with something fresh. In looking through your resume, it wasn't clear about your educational level. Could you clarify that for me as to if you had any college or?
I didn't have any college. I graduated high school, and my training is through the Maine Municipal Association and the Clerks Association.
Okay. So you had listed an academy, so that's the high school level?
That Mattanock Academy is high school.
Okay. And a more general question is, what do you see as an essential skill that you have that would be needed by a clerk?
My computer skills are absolutely necessary. My organizational skills. In the clerk's office, you have to be organized because there's so much paperwork that comes through, and you have to have systems in place to be able to handle all the records that you get. Or if you don't, it's going to be chaos.
Okay. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Councilor Mercer.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Lisa. Welcome 235 miles away to come here this evening. And most of my questions were already asked, and you're doing a great job, I believe. And I know that many areas of concern, you've already answered it. And I'm concerned about communicating between, if you were the supervisor and your employees, and how would you handle disharmony in the office place?
I would sit down with the employees, probably first one-on-one, because if you put them all in a group, somebody's not going to talk. They will open up more to you one-on-one, and then I can really find out what the real problem is, because sometimes the problem they tell you that they are having really isn't the problem, it's something else. So I would sit down with them individually and find out what's going on, and then sit down as a group and see what we could do to work it out.
Yeah, that's good, because I think communication in the department is very important. I don't think you should be an island unto yourself. You all have to work together and cooperate with each other. And I think that's very important, and if you can bring that skill there, that is good. Are you a notary public?
I am from Maine,
You're a notary public for Maine. You have performed marriages.
yes.
Now, say you were to be offered this position at X number of dollars, and someone came along and said, but you know that being a notary public, you do generate some money that is kept by you for performing marriages at the City Hall. Did you perform marriages when you were the clerk up in Maine?
I did, but the town paid for my notary, and all those fees went to the town, and if I worked for the city of Lowell, I wouldn't keep money because it was part of my job. I'm being paid to do my job. If that's one of the requirements is to perform marriages at City Hall, then that money goes to the city, it doesn't go to me.
Very good concept. And I don't have any more questions. I'll leave it at that. Next. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. The questions are quickly diminishing, but here in the city over the last year or so, the administration, with the council's support, has begun to implement or introduce the concept of performance management to a number of departments, to look at data surrounding them in how we're actually, the results we're actually getting from the investment that we have. The question would be, given the number of problems that we do have in the department and that do require some kind of tracking throughout the year, both short and long-term problems, what is your familiarity with the sort of concept of performance management, and how do you see being able to actually carry it out, so that we can both as a management tool for yourself, but also so that we as a council can carry out our oversight duties of the office?
What we've done in Lincoln, and I've been working with the managers for quite a few months now, trying to get their heads wrapped around that concept, because I try to teach them that you have to be able to count something to be able to analyze it. How many dog licenses are we issuing? All of the different things that we issue, do we need this many people working to perform these tasks? And it's more difficult in my fire department to get them to count things than it is in the clerk's office, and the clerk has caught on, and she's doing very well with that. And I can see that's part of the analysis of your department to make it more efficient.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you for being here, Lisa. My question has to do with your management skills and the fact that the city clerk's office, having obviously had experience as a town manager and as a city clerk, multifaceted. How would you, as clerk, supervise all of the various tasks on a daily basis? And I also should let you know that the city council meets weekly, so we go through the clerk's office to prepare the agenda. We have the clerk obviously take the minutes and get all those out to us by noontime on Friday. So it's a multiple task position, if you will. So how best would you use your skills to supervise and at the same time get your work done?
Mm-hmm. Well, first I'd have to look and see of all the different things that need to be done, and then I would look at the employees to see what their strengths were, because if I have somebody that does really well on one thing, I would want to put that person in that position so that they can excel. I don't want to put them in a position where they don't really like what they're doing, and so the morale goes down, and then I'm not getting the productivity that I need.
Right.
And then things don't get done.
Okay.
So you have to prioritize and see what needs to be done and who does best at it.
Okay. Looking at your resume, you were given an award as Maine Clerk of the Year. How did that come about? Who nominates a town clerk for a title or an award like that?
Yeah. That is something that is given out by the Maine Town and City Clerks Association each year. And you can be nominated by other clerks. You can be nominated by someone in your community. I was nominated by the town manager in Lincoln.
Okay, great.
And then they have a committee, the clerks have a committee that they review all the applications, and they make their choice from that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Council Broderick?
Thank you. I guess a couple of quick follow-up questions. As town clerk in Lincoln, who did you work for?
I worked for the town manager.
Okay, so you worked in maybe good, maybe difficult. In Lowell, you would be working for the city council, which I think can probably be a little bit more demanding because you have 9 different folks, peppering you with motions and requests probably at different times. But I was curious about that. And one other question, I don't think this was asked, is in Lowell, we've started to move towards trying to, we call it our packet, our weekly meeting packet. The 12 o'clock is the deadline for getting motions in and putting things on the agenda. And then the packet gets delivered to us historically by a police officer at our homes. And number one, we get it later at night, and there's a delay in getting information out. And now with the technology that's available, we've tried to move towards basically doing these packets electronically and also getting them online. What experience do you have with that type of electronic media or capabilities, or whatever you want to, however you would properly phrase that? Because as you can tell, I'm not that electronically swift.
I think that would be relatively easy to do because you just need to scan the packet in, and then you'd send it as a PDF file, and then you could post it onto the website in the same fashion.
Okay, in the minutes as well. I think one of the problems we have with some of the packets is oftentimes there's plans and some very large documents and things like that. So, but that is something that I know we were looking to try to do, and give councils the option of getting the traditional packet or electronically or both. Thank you. I'll pass it along.
Lisa, just a few questions. You are presently now the town manager of Lincoln,
Yes.
Maine, and prior to that, you were the town clerk?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How did you become the manager of Lincoln, Maine? Did the manager resign or move on, or how did you get that position?
Yes, he moved on. He took another position in Auburn, Maine, and he recommended me to fill the position.
And the council selected you to be the town manager?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how I can ask this question, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. But what is the salary of the town manager of Lincoln, Maine?
73,000.
How much?
73.
73? And what is the salary of the clerk?
The clerk is, I think she's at 40 now.
40.
Yeah, it was higher when I was the clerk.
I'm very confident you could fill this position. Your resume says so, and I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Lisa, you mentioned you had some experience with unions. Could you explain that a little bit more? Or do you have, how many unions do you have?
We have three unions, police, fire, and public works, and I have negotiated each of those contracts, public works twice since I've been there.
So the manager does the negotiation
Yeah.
for those 3 unions?
And
Okay.
then I make sure that, we're all following the contract after it's ratified.
Okay. I think all the questions have already been answered. Just one more question. The clerk's office does receive some marginal receipts. What is do you have, does the clerk's office do that in Maine, meaning people must come in and buy things?
Yes.
What is your experience with
Yeah, in
financial transactions, excuse me?
In Lincoln, we did both the clerk's work and tax collection, so we handled all the money in my office. And each clerk had their own cash drawer, and there was a receipt written for everything, so that at the end of the night, everyone cashed out their drawer and had to bring it back to 100 and make sure that the receipts matched what they had for cash and checks.
And they would bring that to the clerk, or they bring that to the treasurer?
They would give it to the treasurer.
Treasurer, okay. And what is a clerk's role in is that?
Excuse me?
What is the clerk's role? I mean, the individuals go and cash out to the treasurer?
Yes, and if they had a problem with their drawer, I'd help them try to figure out what went wrong. And I also had a drawer of my own, so that, because I waited the counter too.
And would you continue to do that here? Wait at the counter?
If that's the requirement, yes. Yeah.
That's good. Okay, thank you.
I was going to ask that question, so let me ask a slightly different one. What about the offices that weren't part of the treasurer? So the clerk and the treasurer are in the same group, I can see that, but, if I paid a a building department fee or, you know, a fee in some other part of town hall, how is that, and and you pay cash, or maybe you don't allow cash, but how is cash accounted for in your other departments that aren't in the treasurer's office?
Our code and assessing they take in cash, recreation takes cash, the police department takes cash, and the library, actually. And they all need to write receipts and turn that money in. It's a requirement, it's a daily requirement.
So do they keep, each employee who's responsible for that, keep a drawer like in your office, or do you leave that up to the individual departments to determine how they do it?
Yeah, each one has their own drawer in their departments, and then they turn it into the treasurer.
So that's a town-wide policy?
Yes.
And is that something you put in place as manager, or is that just how it's kind of always been done?
It's been tightened up more over the years. It was before I was the manager.
Okay.
It was more the treasurer that tightened the controls.
The treasurer you have now? Okay, thank you.
Have you done any research on our clerk's office, and is there anything that you feel needs to be improved?
I've done a little bit of research, and I know that you had a backlog of documents that need to be scanned. I think it was 40 years or something like that. And I noted that was a big project that needed to come up, and that you were looking for ways to get that done without hiring more personnel. And actually in Lincoln, a project that we just are completing now was our cemeteries. When I took over as clerk, we had a map of the cemetery, and it had, our funeral director would come in and write down the names of whoever bought the lot, and the clerk's office had deeds that they issued, but nothing was put together. And it frustrated me because I didn't have any money to do this, to make it right, so that we had complete records on our cemetery. Because our funeral director, he's in his 60s now, and I said, everything's in his brain. He knows where everybody's buried, but we don't know where they're buried. So over the last couple of years, we've had a couple of TIF districts formed in Lincoln, and we were able to utilize some of that money to have new maps made. And I went to the high school and got one of their groups to get together, and they went through the cemetery and wrote down every name of every stone that was in our cemetery, where it was on these maps. And so now we're taking our records from the clerk's office and we're cross-referencing, and we're going to have a database that has all of that information. So it's coming to a completion, and it's really nice. So I know you have a big task ahead of you, and you're going to need to get volunteers. There are volunteers out there in the community, people who always want to help. You just need to ask.
Thank you.
Yes, Lisa, that was the question. We have a monumental task ahead of us of that department. We have 40 years of work to do with little help and no money. You still want this job?
Yes.
You do, huh?
It can get done.
It can get done. You have faith in that. Do you have any questions for us?
Yes, I do, actually.
I'm sorry I asked. No, I'm only kidding. No, go ahead, go ahead.
Just a couple. So besides the 40 years of records that need to be taken care of, what are the other challenges facing the new clerk?
We kind of asked you these questions, hoping that we would just ease into it. I like a department where everybody can get along, where everybody can communicate with each other. I think that's very important. That is an issue.
Okay.
I want you to know that. I think we do have lack of money. We want you to bring this department into the 21st century without much money. So we are asking that you, look for volunteers. We do need a lot of help in that department. I don't want to discourage you, but you have a very difficult task ahead of you. And you'll find out the rest if we choose you, but go ahead to your next question.
Okay. Well, actually, I was going to ask about the staffing and how the morale was and if there was any issues. Historically, I know the clerk works more than a 40-hour week anywhere. It doesn't matter what town. They work a lot of hours. What are the average hourly work hours for the clerk in a week?
Well, you know that Tuesday night, you're gonna sit or stand up there as the city clerk, and that could go anywhere from an hour to probably 3. And after you put in a day's work, you're gonna come back here. That's about it. Subcommittee meetings, you can assign someone from your office to be the clerk of that committee to do the minutes of the meeting.
Yeah,
I
because
don't wanna-
that was something, I knew that the clerk was responsible for the subcommittees, and so I didn't know whether, there was 10 subcommittees, and, it was going to be every night that you're out.
Actually, there's 27 subcommittees.
Yeah, so
I
you'll
think
be here
Council-
at least 55 hours a week. No, I'm only kidding, but, no. And any more?
I think Council Mercy in a nice roundabout way is saying there's a lot of work and there's little staff. There are some, and we do have the acting clerk. I don't know if he wants to chime in. We'd certainly welcome your comments, because if anybody knows the full
Eric.
extent of the operation, I mean, 9 of us here, we're all part-time, and the clerk, we have an acting clerk that certainly knows and has been there through the transition for the last several weeks, knows the extent of the responsibilities and the hours that it will take, I'm sure, at the outset. But it's certainly more than 40 and hopefully less than 80. Is that okay, Mr. Mayor? Is it all right if we ask the?
Absolutely, Council.
Oh, well, I don't want to speak out of turn. The hours of the clerk's office is open from 8 to 5. There is an assistant clerk. The policy, current policy is that one of the supervisors has to be there all the time. I generally come in at 8 and leave at 5. In addition to that, there's the subcommittee meetings and council meetings, which the clerk would be responsible for. In general, being there for, that's except for the summer session when there's a council meeting once every 2 weeks. The rest of the year, that's a once a week council meeting, and there's generally at least one subcommittee meeting a week. That varies. Some weeks there are none, some weeks there are more than one. So that's kind of the expectation. Sometimes the work takes longer than till 5 o'clock, and then you have to be here longer than 5 o'clock.
That's typical.
Thank you. Patrick, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't really have that many further questions. I know you're not going to be able to answer where all the bodies are buried here. But I guess what I would say is that there will be a number of things that will have to be done right away, and that it will require an ability to be able to prioritize a number of different issues, so that you're able to both keep the office functioning, but also to work at what has become a backlog, for whether it's record keeping or minutes and that sort of thing. So it will be a challenge, and it seems as though you're up for it. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, Council Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lisa, it also indicated that the town manager, who controls the school department? Is there a school committee,
We have a regional school unit.
a regional school?
Yeah, so it's 3 towns, and the committee is elected by the voters, and they're separate from the town. They just give us an assessment of what we owe them.
Now, as a town clerk, does the town clerk get involved with the school committee meetings or regional meetings?
No,
Nothing. How many hours do you work a week? How many hours does a town clerk work a week in Lincoln?
probably about 50.
50 hours, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions at this point? Okay. Well, let me just wrap up by saying thank you, and I want to give you an opportunity to give a closing statement, but I also want you to know, if you were not told by our HR department, we had 125 applications for the position, and the council came up with a short list of 5, so you should be congratulated, in my opinion, for the good work that you've done in the past in your previous position. So with that said, I offer you an opportunity to give a closing statement.
Thank you. Well, I came here tonight and I wanted to get a feel for Lowell. Actually, my husband and I came in early today and drove around the city because this is actually my first time in Lowell. And I was impressed with the city. I believe that I can do a very good job for all of you, and you would not be let down by me. Thank you.
We'll take a 5-minute recess. Push the button so we
Okay.
can join. Okay, why don't we call the meeting back to order, and let me begin by welcoming Jennifer Smith, who's our second candidate this evening. Welcome, Jennifer. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
What we'll do is we'll begin with Council Caulfield this time and just go around and have some questions, but why don't you begin with having an opening statement? Just tell us a little bit about yourself. We obviously have your resume, and as I mentioned earlier, we had 125 applicants for the position, and we shortlisted it to 5. So congratulations that you're now part of the 5 that are being interviewed by the City Council. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me here tonight for an interview. My name is Jennifer Smith, as you all know. I was the Assistant City Clerk in Lawrence for 13 years, and I am now working for the town of Salisbury in their Community Development Department. I absolutely love city clerk work, and I would like to get back into it again. And I have 2 children, and I live in Merrimack, Mass., and it's a nice commute. It's not bad. And I look forward to any questions you might have for me this evening.
Council Cochran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jennifer, sit back and relax.
Okay.
And welcome
Thank
to
you.
the City of Lowell and Lowell City Hall. And your resume indicates you were administrative and financial assistant, Office of Planning and Development, Housing Rehabilitation, and so forth. Can you just explain to the council what's that task all about?
Essentially, the position that I'm in right now is a combination of a few positions. I was hired as the financial assistant to the housing rehab, but the way that the office is structured, I also work with the planning department and the conservation department. Essentially, I income qualify applicants for the house, for CDBG. And we work with various grants, different departments. It's a small town with small offices, so you end up doing a lot of different positions.
Okay. And your resume also indicates that you're assistant city clerk in the city of Lawrence.
Yes.
And you were there from 93 to 2007, and
204, I believe it should be.
1993 to December 2007.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes,
Yeah.
2007.
And why did you move on from that position?
Unfortunately, there were circumstances that I was not able to stay in a position that I very much enjoyed. I had to make a decision whether
You don't have to explain.
it's difficult to put into. I had to leave the position, not of my own volition, in a sense.
Let me ask you this, the city clerk, is that city clerk still in that position in Lawrence?
No, he is not.
No. The reason I ask that is, why, if that city clerk moved on, why didn't you apply for that position? But
I did apply for that position.
yeah, okay. As we discussed with the other candidate, the city of Lowell is the 4th largest city in the Commonwealth, and the clerk's office is extremely busy, 8 to 5, nonstop, and so forth. And you have managerial skills to work with probably 6 to 8 people
I
in
do.
that office? You do.
I actually supervised 9 people at one point for my position with the city.
And I know my colleagues will ask a question, so I'm going to beat them to the punch.
Okay.
We have to update the clerk's office, computerize a lot of things and put it on file and so forth. Do you have any experience in doing something like that?
Fast. The city of Lawrence is very similar to the city of Lowell. Budget cuts, budget restraints. Lawrence had its own issues with keeping up with records, short staff. At one point, we had, as I said, I had 9 people that were under my supervision. It went down to 2. I never gave up when I was younger and I came into the clerk's office. I was actually a senior clerk before I took the assistant's position. I never gave up that position. I chose to keep that position because I enjoyed it, but later on, it was a benefit where we had the cuts. And computers we brought in, I actually was responsible for creating a database. A lot of the records were still being typed into ledgers. And with the budget constraints, that didn't happen. So we had to come up with, obviously, a better system.
And as an assistant city clerk, you must be up to date on Massachusetts general laws, the open meeting laws, public hearings and so forth. So that's nothing new to you. You're well established with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you,
I actually
Jennifer.
did the city clerk's position for a short time before I left.
Okay,
So I've run elections, I've done it all.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, thank you. You mentioned in your opening statement that you enjoyed being the assistant city clerk when you were there, and that you would like to go back to it. What is it about the clerk's position that drives you to go back to go to that position? What is the responsibilities?
It is a very interesting job. Every day you deal with different matters, you deal with different people, and I love that part of the position. You're always learning. It's never boring. I enjoy the laws. I enjoy vital statistics, but mostly I would say that I really do enjoy working with the public.
Right, no, I think that's a good answer, thank you. When you were there, I didn't see, we have unions here in the city. I know that in the clerk's office there are individuals that are part of a union or unions in the city. Did you have that in the city of Lawrence?
Yes, we did.
They did, okay. I presume so. How many hours did you work in Lawrence?
40.
40.
On a regular basis, but as the assistant, I was responsible for going to the city council meetings.
Okay.
But generally, I would also work subcommittee meetings for the city council, and I also worked for the Lawrence Municipal Airport, so.
That was my next question. You did mention that you authored minutes and attended meetings for boards and commissions and the Lawrence Municipal Airport. How does that work? What is the structure of the municipal airport? Is it an authority? Is it a separate entity?
It's part of the city of Lawrence. It's located in North Andover, but it's
Right.
all run by a commission.
So it's a commission, so you would attend those meetings, and did they have staff for the municipal airport, or
They
were
had-
you the staff?
No, they have a secretary who works during the day. They hired individuals to come and do the meetings.
Okay,
It
good.
was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's good, thank you. And you, on your resume, you indicate that you did payroll, or you were responsible for payroll. Is it now automated or was it automated or in transition when you were there?
Not to my knowledge. I don't believe they were on the Munis system.
Okay, so they're not,
But the individual offices were responsible for doing their own payroll and then turning it in to someone who
oh,
did
okay.
it enter the data into the Munis system.
Okay, good. The clerk's office, as you know, does accept payment and receipts. What was the process, or how were?
Before I went into the position of clerk,
Mhm.
it was cash only.
Okay,
But I was not comfortable with that position, and that was one of the first things that I implemented was a new system so that there was a check and balance instead of someone at the end of the night tallying out the cash.
so what was the process when you were the assistant city clerk in Lawrence at the end of the day?
You wrote it, whatever money you took in, you wrote on a sheet of paper, and it went into a cash drawer.
Okay,
And
and then would you or the city clerk
the city clerk was
was
responsible.
responsible for turning that over to the treasurer's office? Okay,
Mhm.
okay, thank you very
You're
much for your answers.
I had some questions too about your position in Lawrence. So, who selects the clerk?
City council.
The council. Okay, so, and at the end of '07, there was a vacancy. When you decided to move on, you said you applied for the position.
It was actually at the end of '04
Okay,
for the city clerk's position.
all right. So the council picked somebody else, and
There were extenuating
Right.
circumstances. And
but you
yes.
stayed on for a while and then decided it was time to move. So it wasn't the mayoral election or anything like that.
No, it was not politically motivated in that sense.
Okay. Were there any you mentioned the Munis system. Did they have any modules that you used in the clerk's office?
Just strictly computer use that we did data entry, access, nothing
Microsoft Access, or you had constructed databases and
for our own use.
for what types of things to track?
To track everything
Everything.
from births, deaths, raffle permits, underground store, everything, dog licenses.
But it was all kind of up to you to figure
Before
out
it was all by hand.
how you're going to do it. Okay. What about getting records away from having to be stored on paper, as opposed to getting things scanned and computer? Is there any of that going on when you were there in Lawrence? Was that?
We tried a variety of different processes. It was not cost-effective, the processes that were chosen by the clerk, so we abandoned a few of them. My understanding now is that Vital Statistics is implementing a software that will eventually help the cities and towns with that.
That's ours too. So, that's our hope, is to have as few things maintained on paper as we, I suppose we're always going to be required by law to keep some paper records.
Yes.
But to the extent things can be converted to electronic data, I think that's what some of us anyway would like to see. Is that your vision for the office? Or?
Absolutely. It was very disconcerting to be using originals to make copies for anything. And they should have been stored properly and copies used even at that point, but I agree. The original should be in a safe place.
And we do have some issues with the original records, and sometimes just the abstract books that we have. They're in poor condition, they need restoration or data entry. Did you have any of those issues when you worked in the Lawrence office?
When I was, we literally typed birth certificates, death certificates. No one had typewriters anymore, and we were still using them. That was another form of data entry that we created. We still used the ledgers or the originals, but they weren't leaving the office in the sense that they weren't going to a copier and being left. They were being taken to a desk,
And then you
typed into
type the record.
computer, and then
Okay. But you have worked with the city council, you're familiar with all that.
Very.
You said you took minutes of meetings and you're comfortable in that role.
very.
Okay, all right. I'll let Councilman Dotsa go next.
Okay. So, skipping over questions I had that have already been asked. Looking over your education, it's not clear if you have a degree or what courses you've taken. So if you could just clarify that for me.
Sure. No, I do not have a degree. I actually just finished taking class at UMass recently, family law. I was 15 credits short of my bachelor's.
Have a bachelor, okay. Have you taken any municipal administration courses?
No, I have not.
Have not, okay.
No, I tried, but at the time, with the clerks, I wasn't given the opportunity.
Okay. Could you tell us what skill you feel is essential, a skill that you have that is essential to the clerk's office?
I think you have to be very detail-oriented. I think you have to be willing to learn and keep up with whatever changes come daily, yearly. You have to be willing to accept new systems. But mostly, I think you have to be aware of the law and be able to ensure that the staff is up to date with how records should be recorded.
Okay. I'll turn it over to Councilor Mercer.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for coming 21 miles to the city of Lowell. I'm very happy that you chose to come here. And Joe just completely asked what skill you would bring with you to the clerk's office, and that was my first question. You are a notary public, are you?
Yes, currently.
You are a justice of the peace.
No longer.
You're not a justice of the peace.
That was with my position as the assistant.
Okay, as an assistant, you were a justice of the peace.
Yes,
And when you were at that time, you performed marriages in Lawrence City Hall?
yes,
And at that time, did you derive any money from that?
yes,
And you were able to keep that, were you?
yes.
And how much would that be, like $75 at the time, or I think it's 100 today?
I think it was 40 at the time.
Well, I think it's 100 today. So if we decided and we gave you this position and we figured in the fact that you would be generating money from this, would you take a lesser salary factored in with the money that you would get as justice of the peace?
I would not have a problem with that.
You wouldn't have a problem with that?
No.
May I, and if I'm asking out of turn, please let me know. Do you know what the salary is for the Lawrence City Clerk? Do you know what that, you don't know
I
what?
have not kept up with that, no.
You haven't kept up with that. What salary are you generating at this time as in the town of Salisbury?
Minimal.
Minimum.
I think
That might be what we're paying, so so I'd just like to know.
I'm certain it's not. It's probably around 36,000.
Okay, so you wouldn't mind me factoring that in because, you do generate money as a justice of the peace, and you do generate that money and you keep it. For example, if you perform 70 marriages at $100, that's a $7,000 bonus in your cap, so.
There are a number of stipends, I believe, that
Because the city
clerks can
doesn't get
collect.
anything from that, and I'm trying to look out for the city as well.
I understand. That's why I said I don't
Okay.
have an issue with that. I just don't know if union-wise, someone else might.
Okay, well, the last person wouldn't have taken it, but that's what I wanted to know. That's no further questions, thank you.
Thank you for being here. Over the last, I'll just stick with the same question that I asked the last time. Over the last year or so, the administration here has been beginning to introduce the concept of performance management to a few of our departments who have experienced some troubles. And the question would be, how familiar are you with the concept of performance management, and how comfortable would you be in really making sure that not only as a manager that you're tracking the internal performance of the department, but also that you're providing the council with enough information to properly conduct its role in oversight of that department?
It's difficult to put into words my situation, but my position with the city, I probably should disclose at some point that I was president of the clerical union, and I was also on the administrator union board. I have no problem. I think that a city or a city council or a mayor should oversee departments as best as they can. I worked very well with the people that were in my office. I think that they respected me as well as I respected them, and I think it is not a difficult job to oversee your staff if you have good communication with them and a healthy relationship. I had a very unusual relationship with members of the city council, different mayors. Unusual in that I think a lot of people become political in a position, especially if you've been in a position for a lot of years. It sort of just becomes old hat. I think I have always had a healthy relationship with different people that have come in, different city councils, whether they have a difference of opinion with what I'm doing or whether they thought I was the greatest thing. I think when you ask me for an opening statement, I think that my best quality is my sense of integrity, and it's done well by me, and I think that that sort of wraps into a performance evaluation of anyone. I think if you're honest and forthcoming, it works well.
That's good to hear, because I think sometimes unusual is the norm here. But what I was driving at with the question is how comfortable are you with setting goals and objectives with the council's input that are, verifiable targets, that as we, work through a number of the issues that we do have in the clerk's office, that we're able to track these perhaps quarterly, so that there's a built-in accountability there, that, we're looking at issues, how quickly we're resolving, for example, the records, and how we're working towards that goal, and being able to identify areas that require significant improvement, whether it be in the record keeping or in meeting everyday requests.
So you're asking me whether I would be able to accept someone else coming into the office offering advice on how to do that, or I'm uncertain about?
No, really just keeping track of data in the office, so that it doesn't actually require that any of us come into the office and tell, in micromanage in that way, but that there are, types of indicators, for example, that are continuously tracked, so that the council, independently of the office, can properly, conduct its role of oversight.
So you're asking me if I would be comfortable with being able to perform those duties?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, and again, welcome, Jennifer. As a supervisor, how would you best describe your management style or your management skills that you would bring to this position? In fact, now that you do supervise, I think you mentioned nine people, and as assistant city clerk in Lawrence, you obviously supervise the staff. So how would you best describe your management style?
Easygoing. It doesn't mean that I don't have certain demands of the people that work for me, but I think that I have always had a good working relationship, whether it be people that are subordinate to me or people that I work for. That I think, as I said earlier, if you show people respect, they respect you as well. And I think I've always had a very good working relationship with the people that I've been around, and they want to do well by me, and vice versa.
Okay. Can you describe your computer skills? How comfortable are you with certain software programs? You mentioned Munis earlier. We're looking at trying to upgrade the computer system that we have, the software system that we have in the city clerk's office.
Again, the positions I've had, it's constantly learning. Right now, I'm on the GMS system with the state for grants, so I'm very comfortable with computers.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Barr?
Thank you. A lot of my questions have already been asked, so I'll try and be a little more specific, so please forgive me if it seems a little repetitive. One of the things that the council has been trying to implement is getting, we call it our weekly packet. In Lowell, we have meetings pretty much every Tuesday night. In the summer, we go to a summer schedule, which is every other two Tuesdays a month. And motions and agenda items are due by noon on Friday now. And one of Councilor Murphy's motions was to provide the packet in a paperless fashion okay? As well as we get it delivered to our house on Friday evenings by a police officer. So you were last a clerk in 2007, and things have, technology has changed. Mayor just asked you a question about technology, so it's a little bit repetitive, but is this something you think that you would have enough experience and you would be able to handle continuing this process and providing this this type of service, also getting it minutes and things done timely and posted on the website?
I've done that all.
Okay, good. And you said, I believe you did state that you're familiar with the public records law, and so that you don't see an issue there. And how would you train your staff or to keep them updated on both the open meeting law, public records laws, the Mass General laws that apply to the clerk's office? Is there any particular style or thing you used to do in Lawrence, or that you would do differently maybe here?
Lawrence was baptism by fire. You essentially learned as you went along. But there are different forums and seminars that are offered that I think that people definitely should attend, and it would be great if the city of Lowell were open to that for its employees. But essentially, it's teach as you go.
Okay. Thank you. And no one else asked, so I will. I know you have 2 children, but would you be willing to move to Lowell if you were hired as a clerk?
Actually, I actually was planning on moving and coming down towards this area, so Lowell would be definitely on the radar.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions at this point? Counselor Elliott and Counselor Mendoza.
I just wanted to follow up on my discussion earlier on the change in the cash system. What was the new protocol versus the old system? What was the significant change between the prior system and then the one that was implemented?
The first request I made was for a cash register. Believe it or not, that was the most that I could get at that point.
Okay.
But it was substantial considering the system that we had prior to.
Okay. So the new system, are there certain people that accept, that are allowed to accept, or is it just one drawer, or is it just one ledger? Are they numbered? And I know this was a little while ago, but when you were there, were there numbered receipts? Was it electronically done?
No,
No.
absolutely not.
Do you-
It was not a great system at all.
Okay.
It needed a lot of work.
Okay. Can you tell me what you're working towards a certification as a parliamentarian?
I'm sorry?
You got a recommendation from, oh no, this is attached to the wrong sheet, I'm sorry. That's all my questions then. I just had that follow-up question, so thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Mendoza?
If you've done any research on our clerk's office, just give you the opportunity to tell us what do you think needs to change, or what would you change?
I have not done anything on your clerk's office. I have minimal information on it, and I intentionally chose that forum for myself because I didn't want to come in with any preconceptions as to individuals that were involved with the office.
Okay, thank you.
But I am aware that you do have some financial concerns, and my only experience has been when can I ask for a show of hands, actually? Who is familiar with my background in respect to why I left my position with the City of Lawrence?
I don't think any of us are familiar.
Okay. I don't know if this is the proper forum where it's televised,
Yes,
but it's
we
probably
are
the best.
televised.
Yeah.
Right, but so within the constraints that I have, there was, as I said, I loved my job with the city clerk's office. I really did. And I was tested in a supervisory capacity in that I had been in a position myself for a number of years that I thought I handled well. and in protecting myself without hurting anyone else, I tried to keep my office intact. Unfortunately, the circumstances that fell upon me as a supervisor, I had to protect other people in my office, and I had a very difficult decision put on me as to whether I would go forward or stick my head in the sand. I chose to go forward and protect the people that were in my office, and it was a very trying time, and it did not turn out the way that I had hoped it would, and when I saw the writing that was on the wall is when I decided that I could no longer work in that position. I have always been able to politically, as I said earlier, get along very well with people. In a clerk's position, it's very difficult when you have, the city of Lawrence is a little bit different in that you have a mayor and you have a city council, and both parties want to have the control. And when you're the clerk and you're in the middle, a lot of times certain individuals will get upset that you follow the rules to the T and someone may want you to. And I've always been very efficient in being able to do my job well and not upset the apple cart, in that I think people respect that if you come from a basis of honesty. That being said, I understand you have some issues with your own office, and that's why I chose to not prejudge. I would like to come into a position clean slate and see how an office can run smoothly and efficiently and everyone is happy in their environment. That's what I came from, that's what I would like to go back to.
Okay, you may have already answered this, but in Lawrence, who appoints the city clerk?
The city clerk is appointed by the city council, the assistant is appointed by the mayor.
And, oh, okay, so there's different reporting responsibilities.
So
And who is
I
the rest?
actually, I really had a dance.
And who manages the rest of the office? I mean, the employees in the clerk's office.
It should be the city clerk, but it fell upon the assistant city clerk while I was there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Council Martin?
Thanks. Do you have any language skills besides English, which we think you handle very well, by the way?
Thank you. I was more fluent in Spanish than I am now. I'm a little rusty, but I do well.
Okay. And Councilor Mercy asked the prior person we interviewed, do you have questions that you'd like to ask of us? Anything that, and just to put you at ease, I think we have most of the cash management issues solved. That's not to say you wouldn't have your own ideas as to how to improve them even more, but and it is a concern, but it's not the main concern, I think, at this point. But we're open to answering questions that you might have of us, if there are any.
I really don't have any questions when it comes to the position itself.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, thank you. We've given each candidate an opportunity to give a 2-minute closing statement. If you'd like to give a closing statement at this time.
I would just like to thank you for inviting me here tonight. I really enjoyed the opportunity to meet you all and speak with you. I wish you luck with whomever you go with. I think the city of Lowell is a beautiful city. Driving in here tonight really was enjoyable. I wish the same for the city of Lawrence. I would love the opportunity to work here. I do visit Lowell. I don't get to the downtown often, but with school and friends, I am here frequently. My grandmother came from Lowell, so my mother insisted that I had to mention that tonight. I didn't think it would be televised. But I really would love to get back into the position, and I realize that you have a daunting job ahead of you, the circumstances that are given to you, but I would mostly like you to know that if you want a candidate that is, what you see is what you get. There's no agenda. I absolutely do love the position. I love vital statistics. I love meeting people, and whether they're crappy or nice, it's always a fun day. And I would enjoy being a permanent member of City Hall.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take a 5-minute recess.
Okay. We're not on yet. Yeah. I remember the routine.
Okay, well, thank you. Call the meeting back to order. Our next candidate is Michael Geary, who is a local attorney here in Lowell, resides here in Lowell. And I mentioned to Michael that we go around and we have questions from each counselor after an opening statement, and then we'll ask Michael to give us a 2-minute closing statement. So with that, I'll turn it over to our candidate, Michael Geary, for an opening statement, and then we'll begin questioning with Counselor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members and Mr. Mayor. I thank you for the opportunity to be before you tonight. It's truly an honor, and it's an honor that I hope that will flourish into what I'm asking you for here tonight is the position of the Lowell City Clerk. I want the job because I'm qualified for the job, counselors. Because of my commitment and the commitment of many others, I'm blessed with an excellent education. I also have a vast employment experience. I was a partner, managing partner and owner of a downtown Lowell law firm for approximately 20 years. It was an office that is pretty similar to the size in terms of personnel at different times in my tenure of the clerk's office. In addition, I have some vast municipal experience. For 2 years, I sat where you people are sitting as a city councilor. It was an honor to serve the city of Lowell. It was an honor to sit where you sit. It's something I'll never forget, and it's one of the reasons I'm coming back here and I want to get more involved in public service. Secondly, I was a licensed commissioner for approximately 10 years. Again, a position I was honored to have, serving the people of Lowell, interacting with the people of Lowell, and doing the best I can to have this building shine. That's my plan for the city clerk's position. During those tenures in this building, I've been involved with every department of the building. I've been involved with the legal department, I've been involved with the building department, and most importantly, I've been involved with the clerk's department as my 10 years on the commission and as my 2 years on the council. It's important that you were involved with every department of the building, and I think that's an important element for the city clerk as well. I'm a Lowellian. I bought my first house here in Lowell. I bought my second house here in Lowell. I bought a business building in Lowell. I bought my third house here in Lowell. In 50 years from now, 100 years from now, my last purchase will be a plot up at St. Patrick's. I'm going to stay in Lowell. I have no plans. I'll never leave Lowell. And I pray to God that my 2 little girls stay in Lowell. That's the basic element while I'm here today. I'd love to have some questions for you, and I'm ready.
Thank you, Michael. I'll turn it over to Counselor Murphy.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. As I asked the first 2 applicants, as you probably are aware, the city has begun to introduce the concept of performance management into a number of departments to track data on a long-term basis, to be able to find efficiencies within the departments, and eventually to make that information public so that there's a kind of built-in accountability. How familiar are you with this type of management strategy, and how comfortable would you be not only in using it as your own management tool within the department, but also in helping the rest of the council carry out its role of oversight?
I think it's extremely important. I think what you're describing there, as far as management of that department, is a best management practice. I think you have to have some formalized work plans that are written, some written procedures, so that everyone in that staff can follow what is expected of them. I think when you're computerizing workloads, you can see what is being developed, what is being done, what needs to be done better, what needs to be done more, what needs to be done less. I think those plans, those formalized work plans, the data that you get from tracking what work is being done, it should be reviewed. It should be reviewed either biannually or annually to make sure that everybody's on target. It speaks to the transparency of the department. I think that's what government is today, and that's what people out there want to see, is a transparency from their government. And they want to be able to look in that window and see what's going on and why is it going on and what can be done to make it better and what can be done to make it more efficient. In addition, I think it's important that when I was a city councilor, my involvement with the clerk, as I heard others speak about it, was mostly, production of the motions, making sure my motions got on, making sure that, the clerk got the motions in time and stuff. Not so much the management and oversight back then. I think now that has to end. I think it's on the onus is on the clerk. The onus is on the clerk to report to each and every one of the city councils about what strategies that are being invoked, what plans are in progress, what are the written procedures, how are they being followed, and again, the review of same is important. It speaks to transparency in government. It's a best management practice, and it's something that should be implemented immediately and stuck with throughout and adapted through annual reviews or however often that is necessary to review to make sure that the work plans are being followed and that the work is being done efficiently.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for coming up here this evening and showing an interest in the position as city clerk.
It's my pleasure, Counselor.
I know that you said that you had experience with the clerk's office. I think we all do, but that doesn't qualify us to be the next city clerk. So how would that equal to what your experience is with the clerk?
I think it's an element that I'm familiar with the workings of that office. But in addition, I have other experience that I think I bring to the table. And one of those experiences is working for 20 years as a managing partner in a law firm. It has to do with that management aspect. It has to do an awful lot with management of documents. It has an awful lot to do with auditing of documents. It has an awful lot to do with indexing documents to be an effective lawyer. And those are elements that I have. Those are skills that I have that I can carry on to that office. In addition, the office that I managed, at one point or another, we had about 5 employees or 6 employees, and we managed those employees. Again, by trying to implement our best management practices in going forward with those to make sure that the work was getting done and everybody understood what their job was. Again, and I should have probably mentioned this to Councilor Murphy, I think another important element of an efficient working clerk's office is cross-training of all the employees so that everybody knows everybody else's job. I plan on knowing every individual's job in that office, and I expect the same of those in the office because, in contemplation and in preparing for this, I looked on average of other clerks throughout the Commonwealth. And the city of Lowell is probably, though it's it's the 4th largest municipality, it's probably middle of the pack for staffing in the clerk's office. That's fine. You just got to make that the most effective middle of the lot in terms of those individuals. And lastly, Councilor Mercier, is I had a unique experience when I started, when I came on to the legal practice in the 80s. My father and my uncle had started the business back in the 50s. Now, each of those individuals had 7 kids and 8 kids respectively, so when they got rid of a file, they filed it. And it was filed, and there were stacks of files and stacks of files and stacks of files. When we bought the building downtown Lowell, it was an opportunity, and I was part of the team that organized 30 years worth of files in a basement where it was stored, and we had to follow procedures that the BBO had implemented, and we had to scan the documents, and we had a team effort to do it. It took a long time. It was a great effort, and I was part of that effort. And I think experience like that is going to be fruitful in what needs to be done in the clerk's office.
So why would you leave a family business?
I left, an opportunity rose about 5 years ago, an interest in the corporate aspect of the law. And so that's what I did. I left, obviously, on great terms, and it was just an opportunity that I had, and I've been practicing in corporate law for the last 5 years.
So that's why you did that.
Absolutely.
And so, this being the digital technology age, what do you know in the computer work that you could bring into the clerk's office into the 21st century?
Well, I had an opportunity to review the report that was proffered by Attorney Leahy, and again, in preparation, I said, I'd like to talk to him, and he was absolutely gracious enough to give me his time. And, in terms of the hardware that has to be developed, and in terms of the computerization of it, there are some that he stated that were in place, but they were, for some reason, abandoned. He didn't know the reason. I think we should get to the bottom of that reason. I think it's important that the documents are computerized, and that, more importantly, that their index is computerized, so you have a safeguard, a safe environment, and there are rules and regulations that the state are going to implement for the older documents to be safeguarded, and what can be kept and what can be discarded. But in talking to him, and I think, and I agree with him, he mentioned, and others have mentioned to me, that the IT department in this building is excellent. The gentleman's names escape me now, but I heard he's top notch, and I think that we got to see what the resources are in this building as far as IT is, and if need be, we may have to go out, but budgeting I understand, and money I understand, and I think, from what I hear, this department, the IT department is splendid, and we should be utilizing it more.
Are we talking about Moran Fernandez?
Yes.
Yes. What do you know about the changes to the open meeting laws that were changed about a year ago?
Yeah, it was
Do you
approximately
know
about a
how
year.
to bring this into compliance with this department?
Yeah, again, I can bring it in compliance without question. I have an understanding of it. When I sat as a commissioner, and when I sat as a counselor, I have a vast understanding of it, and I understand, what has to be implemented, and more importantly, what has to be put to each individual entity and each individual employee in terms of the open meeting law and the state ethics law. I understand there's a lot of work to do in compliance. I have no issue whatsoever. I am confident that will be done, and it will be done in the fastest of orders, because I think it's an important element.
I'm going to pass the torch, but I could go on and on just to let them know how we felt up here when they asked all the questions.
You've always been a leader.
Thank you.
I know what the others are going to ask, so I'm going to try not to step on their questions.
Great.
So it might seem a little odd.
Go ahead.
But I've been asking about the education level, and yours is pretty clear. You have a Juris Doctorate, so you're at doctorate level. Have you taken any courses in municipal administration?
I have not. Again, my experience comes from being in the building as a counselor and as a commissioner in terms of running meetings. I was chairman of License Commission for a short period of time in terms of running a meeting, in terms of interacting with the public, in terms of posting meetings and the like. And it's municipal administration is something that I've read about, I've experienced, I've seen it. I've often, like I said, been involved with it. An important thing that, in speaking with Attorney Leahy, was the fact that the city wasn't a member of the Municipal City Clerks Association. I think that's a vital element that should be addressed. I think that they should be a member. I believe it wouldn't be a strain on the resources, but it's where you get more familiar with strategies. It's where you get more familiar with the open meeting laws and the changes to the legislative element in terms of the ethics law. And I think it's an important element to be a part of that. It's a good learning tool.
All right. Something specific to your resume, I think you've already touched on it, but I'll give you an opportunity to say more if you wish, was that in your resume you had that you were a partner in the law firm. So I had a question about what your managerial experience was. You've stated that you were a managing partner. So could you give us a little more about that? How many people were involved? And how long you were managing
It
partner?
was about 20 years, and you know, I came in right at the beginning. I was a managing partner. Unfortunately, I became that because once I got out of law school, my father just passed away, and my uncle was left by himself down there, and you know, I was fortunate enough to have him allow me to come in and grab the bull by the horns right off the bat, and it was a baptism by fire because I just got out of law school. I just passed the bar. It was an exciting time. And at one point, we had about 5 employees and would manage the employees in terms of, you know, workload, separating the work, and making sure that, you know, if there's any friction in the office, resolving those results. And in terms of managing the litigation part of it, just managing cases, managing workloads, managing caseloads, making sure that we're calendared and docketed so we don't miss any statute of limitations. And most importantly is cash management as well. A lot of times you're dealing with others' money, so it's a very important element that you kept strict guidelines and adhered to strict procedures and policies to make sure that their money is protected.
What skill do you have that you could bring to the office that you feel is essential to the office?
I believe I have a terrific leadership skills. I believe that if there's any disputes that I'll be able to resolve those disputes. I believe that I have the ability to work with other departments in a strong fashion. I have the ability to listen and understand the problems and solve problems. Most of your life as a lawyer is you put out a lot of fires, and that's what I've done for the past 25 years. And if need be, I'm sure they're going to exist. I have the capability to understand what the problem is, address the problem as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and move on to the business of the clerk.
Speaking of moving on, I'll turn it over. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Councilor.
Okay, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Michael, it does say in your resume you're a lawyer. We knew that, but so I assume you're familiar with the Registry of Deeds.
Absolutely.
And one thing that at least my view of what Dick Howe has done, he kind of came in at a time at the Registry of Deeds where new technologies were, vastly improving and becoming available. But he immediately seized on that opportunity, I think, and has made, the Registry of Deeds here in Lowell kind of a model for what it should be statewide. The way documents are, they get scanned in, they get turned, the originals get returned right back. They've done away with storing a lot of original documents. And so and I've asked other applicants the same question, that's kind of my vision for the city clerk's office. Now, there's some things I think by law we're always going to have to keep paper copies of, but my question is that, can you do that? Can you take, sort of the antiquated systems we have and modernize them? Can you do it? Will you do it?
I absolutely will do it. It has to be done, and I can do it. Interesting, again, in preparation, in pursuit of the position, I approached our registrar, Mr. Howe, and again, he was generous enough to give me his time and his input. We spoke a lot about, in terms of, because it was a similar problem, I think, that faces the city. A lot of antiquated, older books, and you had to have the ability to computerize the documents going forward. In fact, he was kind enough to give me a report about how he approached it, and I have that report, and it's a great start in terms of getting your hands around it and moving forward. The simple elements, is that understanding that the hardware is probably not that burdensome or expensive. The preparation is a little bit more, work-related and a little bit more intense, and the third part element was getting the people to do the bodily scanning work or whatever has to be done. I think those are areas that have to be flushed out, that have to be pursued, and there's it's kind of like you set up a production line and get it going and find out what's the best system to scan all these, to archive the old documents and to set up files for the new documents, set up index for those new documents, and I had a good lengthy conversation with them. It has to be addressed. It's not an overnight process. It's an element that I think would probably involve some input from our IT department. I have the ability to do it, and I'm willing to do it, and I think it's a really critical element of the job.
Thanks. My other question may be repetitive too, so if you feel you've answered it, feel free to move on. But, I'm a lawyer. Others up here are lawyers. You're a lawyer, and I expect you're a pretty good lawyer. But you don't always associate being a good lawyer with being a good manager. And I know you said you're a managing partner, and you've explained something about what that entails. But what makes you different, kind of from the average run-of-the-mill lawyer who may not, can run a case and, handle, a paralegal and a secretary, but not, manage a group of people? And so I suppose you're going to say you've had that experience, but is there anything in your personality or background that you feel distinguishes you from others in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is. First of all, I think the legal education is a well-rounded education. It's a terrific education. It kind of spans the whole horizon, and it's always something that your ability to learn more, and it's always something that's changing, and your ability to keep up with those changes is a constant task with the mind, which is what I like. Secondly, again, in the managing element, there were employees that we managed during the course of that partnership, and there were things that as my personality dictates, is I'm not afraid to go in there and get a consensus going if need be. I'm not afraid to go in there and say, hey, this is how it has to be. If you can't do that, then there really isn't room here for you. It's a hard-edged approach on it. I have the personality for it, but I also have the personality to understand that, listen, that might not be the best route to go. I think it all has to do with your experience in life. I've been around the block a couple of times. I have a couple of young kids, so I have to go around the block a couple hundred more times. And I think I have the personality to manage personnel, to motivate them, and to understand that there's a team concept involved, and that we all should be part of that team to make the clerk's office. As you stated, my ultimate goal is to make that clerk's office, as a registry of deeds, a model. I want people to realize that, hey, listen, we need to make some changes in our clerk's office. I want to say, let's call Lowell. That's the ultimate goal. Let's call Lowell. They know how they do it. This is how they do it. And again, in that element of that membership in the Municipal Clerks Association, in those situations, that's where you get your information. That's where you get your knowledge. But I think that the bottom line goal is that the city of Lowell should have the model clerk's department, and it will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I agree. I think I agree with those statements that we should be a model. And along those lines, I also agree, or I want to get your thoughts on when you mentioned in your opening statement, you've been on this side. You've been one of 9 working, when the clerk's working for you. And the onus, I agree, is on the clerk, because we all have jobs and we're all busy. What would your expectations be of 9 city councilors, and how would, in terms of communicating with us and us with you, if you were selected for this? Meaning, more on the communication side, what you're doing, how you're doing, what your priorities are.
Absolutely. I think, as I stated before, that my involvement with the clerk's office was, as many of you are probably, had to do with filing of motions, making sure my motions got recorded, making sure my motions got on the agenda, and dealing with any other problems that I had. I'd expect to be proactive. I would definitely be proactive in terms of, reporting to either the subcommittee or reporting to the full committee what is going on in that clerk's office as we develop through some, and that report has some issues that have to be addressed. So it'll be a constant reporting to each counselor in the form of maybe twice a month, once a month, whatever we can feel comfortable with in terms of reporting where we're going, where we're at, what we have to do, what help we need, and what more is expected of us, and what more we are able to do. And again, I think that, as professional people that sit on this council, as dedicated public servants that you are, that it won't go ignored, that there will be input back, and again, if I don't see it, I'll pursue it further. I think the onus should be on the clerk to inform the council.
Well, I give you credit, not only that you picked up the report, that you went through it and you sat down with Mr. Lee, and I think a lot of work has already been done, a lot of progress has been made, and Eric Slagle has continued that. And knowing that, what would be, as you read through, what would be a priority or some of the priorities that you would focus on once you were hired?
I think immediately, in the report, kind of spelled it out. It has to be the open meeting law and the ethics certifications to make sure that they're up to date and they're in compliance with state law. A great resource is the open meeting, I believe it's called the Open Government section of the AG's office, is a website there. It's very interactive. It spells out the rules and regulations. And again, I think that's a priority to go forward there in terms of making sure we're in legal compliance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Garfield?
Yes. Good evening, Michael.
Good evening, Councilor Caulfield.
I had the pleasure of serving with Michael Gary in 94, 95, and
It was my pleasure, Council.
and that's when the Song of Serena was coming
Yes.
forward, and the Lasha Ballpark, and it was a little turmoil, but good times in the city.
It's a great time.
And Michael, you have an extensive education, and I don't have any fear of you knowing the Massachusetts general laws, the open meeting laws, anything pertaining to that. I don't have any fear at all. I just want to bring forward, besides council motions, and on Fridays, we all know what happens on Fridays, I have to get that motion, and that's irrelevant. There's many other things pertaining to the clerk's office. Keeper of the records, death certificates, birth certificates. You got people coming in for dog licenses, people coming in to get married. Are you prepared to be a justice of the peace?
Yes.
Public hearings, no one to let the mayor know and this council know. The public hearing is going to be on a certain date, and you must attend all council meetings. You're the clerk. Like every department in any large city like Lowell, every department is important, and experience is needed, whether it's the treasurer's office, the clerk's office, assessor's office, DPW, whatever. I like what you said when you're willing to work hard to bring this department forward, moving into the 21st century, and have people call Lowell for information and so forth. And you did take the time to meet with Dick Howe Jr. on the
I
assessors?
did. He was generous enough to give me an opportunity to sit down and speak with him.
Yeah. Once again, there's a lot of questions have been asked and answered, and I must say that you were a member of the city council, but you also are very, very important and belong to many organizations in the community. And that's important, I think, to be involved, to stay involved. You served on the License Commission and Massachusetts Bar Association, Lowell Bar Association, Federal Bar District of Massachusetts, St. Patrick's Scholarship Committee, Board of Governors, Saints Medical Center, and so forth. So, like I've told every candidate so far, that everyone that I've interviewed this evening, they all have the qualifications to take this position over, and I think you do too. So
I appreciate it. And again, I think the fact that my community involvement is kind of paramount, because like I stated earlier, this is the place for me. This has been the place for my family for a long time, and again, I just want to make it the perfect place for my kids to stay here, because a lot of second generations have left the city, and I don't like to see that, and I think my kids will enjoy living here as well, and just following up with you, Councilor, those 2 years on that city council were fun. They were hectic. They were lively. They went to 2 o'clock in the morning. There were counselors that are involved in nose to noses. God rest his soul, Councilor Pulius and Councilor Howe. I thought it was an exciting time for the city. And I think back on those times, Counselor, and I left a little bit of a mark there in terms of that ball field and in terms of that arena. And I love going up and showing the plaque to my kids when I bring them there. It says, that's Daddy's name, that's Daddy's name. And that's why I want the position. I want to leave a further mark on the city of Lowell with that clerk's department. I want to serve the public again, and I want to get it so I can look back, not to tell everybody else, but for my own being. I'm not a big horn blower, but for my own being, I want to be able to sit back and say, wow, that's a good job. I want to be able to sit at dinner with my kids and say, that's a good job. I'll blow my horns to my family, but you won't see me doing it in public. It's a team effort, and I realize that.
Just in closing, Mr. Mayor, you know, being a department head is very, very important, and you must know the job. But I feel the most important part of the job of being a department head and so forth is to treat people in a nice way. And you can get an awful lot of satisfaction out of doing that. And it's one thing to know about all the Massachusetts general laws and public hearings and so forth, but if you can have everyone in that office all working together to make that office much better than...
Respect will get the most
very
production.
important.
Respect will get the most production. I agree with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Michael.
Evening, Council.
They didn't leave many questions for me, but I'll try and think of a few here. Yeah, Council Caulfield hit the rest of them. You know, I obviously have read your resume, and I'm familiar with you as an attorney, and I respect your work. I do respect your service to the city, both as a councilor and on the commission.
Thank you.
You obviously have a passion for the city that I think all of us respect. One of the questions that's been asked by me, as a lawyer, I guess, and some of the fellow lawyers or people that know I'm a lawyer say, well, geez, you know, Mike Geary's a lawyer. Is he still going to practice law if you pick him as clerk? So I guess I'll ask that question. I think is an obvious answer, but this would be a full-time job. You wouldn't practice law, correct?
Absolutely. I would not practice law. I would not practice law. I'd
right.
stay up on it because it's a constant changing thing, and I still get the literature on it, but I wouldn't practice law. I think that the law, education in law and different elements of law are important for everyday life. I mean, if you pick up a newspaper, every article you read in a newspaper has a legal element to it. So it's everywhere. So I'll stay abreast of it. I won't practice. This will be my commitment, my full commitment to the city.
Okay. And that's important, obviously. You're aware of the difficulties that exist in the office, and I do appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to read the reports and talk to the folks that have been involved, but also Mr. Howe. That question was already grabbed. Billy Martin, Council Martin, I think, grabbed that one on me. But you know, I think it's important to reach out to people that have had the success in revamping and retooling similar type of organizations.
Those conversations I have with those individuals won't be the last ones, and there'll be more individuals involved.
And I think that's the key because, you know, you're not an IT guy. We can tell from your resume. But, you know, personally, I'm looking for someone who's going to come in, work hard, and bring in and tap into other resources in terms of how to get the job done effectively. And I think that you know, the initiative you've taken speaks very highly towards that. And, you know, I would... I guess one of my, not concerns, but I wanted to clarify is to make sure that this was going to be your one and only job, and I understand you're going to be, on subcommittees, and you've been on this side, so you do know the time commitment. And just, I guess by way of a last question or issue is, as these new processes are implemented, Lowell is very, as you know from being involved, is very union-oriented and very strong. How do you envision making these changes effective in the office, and what would be your I guess policy or your strategy in terms of getting people on board and these changes that can be difficult. Technology, can sometimes, any change can sometimes
for
scare
change.
people.
It's difficult for people. I'd ease them into it as gently as I could, I think, until it comes to the point that if you're not getting a response you want, you have to change your approach to people. It's managing people. It's understanding people. It's just it's dealing with people in a head-to-head manner, in a respectful manner, in an understanding that we have to develop a team concept. There's no way I can get an office of that size to where you want it to get. One individual can't do it. So everyone in that office has to understand that it's a team concept. If we can all take pride in it at the end of the day when it's up and running in the jewel of the Commonwealth. Anything that I don't understand, I have the ability to learn. It would be a short learning curve in terms of anything that would come to on my end, And again, I expect others to be as willing and as eager to learn something new and to do something different if it's asked of them, and for the good of all, for the good of the department.
All right, and my last question, I'm going to take this from Councilor Mercier, asked this of the last two candidates. As a justice of the peace, there is a fee. I'm learning more about this evening. What would be your position on that? Would that stay with the city, or would you accept that as a fee to you?
I don't know. You got a fee for it, but I would believe that if I'm operating on city time and doing a wedding or a marriage in the city, that's city property. I don't have any doubts about that.
All right. Good answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. Michael, again, thank you for being here. And let me just, as I said to the other candidates, we received 125 resumes. We're interviewing 5, so I want to congratulate you for getting to this point.
And again, I'm honored for your commitment to me.
And I also appreciate the preparation that you put in to meet with and speak with both Attorney Leahy and with the Register of Deeds, Mr. Howe. My question is, 90 days from now, assuming you become our clerk, what do you see the changes that would have been made in the clerk's office during your first 90 days?
I'd see there be formalized work plans. I would see that the beginning of cross-training would be done. I would see that would be well on our way to compliance with mass open law and the ethics law. I would see that there'd be headroads made into how we're going to develop our record-keeping system and dealing with the archive files. I believe to kind of push the whole pile forward together and make strides in every element that's been addressed in that report.
Would you recommend that we become a member of the Massachusetts Clerks Association?
Absolutely. I think that it's...
You may have actually already done that under acting city
that is
clerk,
important
so.
because it's an educational tool, and it's, from my understanding and my research of it, it's a pretty good organization that reaps a lot of benefit, and that willing to help if you need the help.
Okay.
I'm not afraid to ask for help.
My last question, can you just briefly describe your management skills going into a small office? As you know, the office is 4 or 5 strong, including the clerk.
Again, my management skill is it depends on it's people skills. What is this individual looking for? What does he need? What does the department need? What do I need to get out of him? And it'll be different for every individual because they have different personalities and stuff. But the focus is that they have to understand that at the end of the day, it's a team effort. They have to understand that it's one. You move as one, and they have to understand if they can't do that, then there has to be some repercussions with it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Councilor Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Michael, I believe in transparency. You do as well, right?
Absolutely.
Could you disclose any donation that you have given to any campaign person sitting in front of you?
I've given donations
I mean this last campaign.
Yes, I've given some donations to him.
To who in sitting in front of you here? Any one of us got a donation from you? Like, I think that you should disclose that if you did that.
Yeah, there was. I can't remember offhand, but I did.
I'd be happy to answer that. I received a donation from Attorney Geary, but once he became an applicant, I returned the donation to Attorney Geary.
There were 2 that Council Martin did as well.
I did the same. I just sent the check back.
I think in all fairness, we should know that, so that's why I brought it up.
I remember the sending them back, and
Okay.
I believe in the
I
transparent
think that's
And I'm not
fair
offended by the
thing.
question. I think transparency is important.
Right,
Yeah.
that's right. And that's why I asked the question, because I wanted to know if it was returned, and
was.
it was, so that's
Yeah.
okay.
And then
And I
again, that was
almost feel
before my
like,
application had-
and I almost feel like I could buy a car off of you. Yeah, that's all right, thank
That,
you.
I mean, is it good, in a good way?
Yeah, in a good way.
Good.
Yeah, Mercedes. Any other questions before we ask Michael for his closing statement? Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think I've covered just about everything that I wanted to cover. I thank you for the opportunity to be here. It was a vast amount of applicants. I'm honored that I got down to the final 5. I'm asking you to put me up in this seat right up here. You won't be disappointed. I'll do a terrific job for you. I have integrity. I have a work ethic. I have a commitment to the city. And I have an ability to do that job. And I want to do that job. And I want to do it well, and I want you to be proud of the job, and I want the city to be proud, and I want to be back in the public service, and I'm asking you to allow me to do that, and there won't be any disappointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That concludes our interview process for this evening. We're going to recess the meeting, and we'll be back here tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. Thank you.